Hey everyone, how's it going? Matthew Bailey here, and welcome back to the Top Things videos. And tonight I'm going to be doing my picks for the top 10 2017 movies that I saw back in 2017. Now, I know that I was doing my channel in the year 2017, but I waited until after I did my 2018 rankings of best and worst. That I haven't done my worst one yet, but for 2018, but I will try to do that for this one though. And because, like I said, there was a lot of movies that I saw in 2017. I saw a total of 18 films, so one less than this year or this past year. But I'm gonna do 10 movies that I thought were pretty good, and I might possibly do 5 movies that I didn't think were as good in 2017. Maybe have to think about that, but for right now, let's get into my picks for the top 10 2017 movies that I thought were the best, in my opinion. Number 10. So, for number 10, honestly, I know a lot of people were not as happy with the first sequel to this series, but for this one, I thought it did a little bit better, as good as the first one did, and that is going to be Cars 3. Yeah, I thought Cars 3 was okay. I mean, it definitely was way better than the sequel, Cars 2, and I know a lot of you were so over that movie, meaning you hated it, and I totally understand. I was confused about the whole spy themed version of this movie, and I don't know why they even went that route. But Cars 3, I thought, stuck to the roots of what it did in the first Cars movie. Like how Lightning McQueen finds out about Doc Hudson, he becomes his crew chief, and by the third movie, we already know he was dead in the second movie, but honestly, this third movie definitely stuck to the roots of what the first one did. They were talking about how Lightning McQueen's days could possibly be over, and he realizes what he could do, and as a teacher to a new rookie, and he realized that this young girl named Cruz Ramirez had the same amount of stuff he did. And he even says that famous line that Doc himself said, she's got a lot of stuff, eh, Doc? So, yeah. I honestly thought that this movie was a good movie. I felt like it sort of ended the series off a little well, but that's mostly because it had 3 films, but honestly, I felt like Cars 3 should have been the Cars 2 that we deserved to get. The Cars 2 that we did get, we can all agree that was not the best movie of the series, and Cars 3 should have been, like I said, the Cars 2 we should have gotten. But for number 10, I'm going to have to go with Cars 3. Number 9. So, for number 9, I gotta say, this movie definitely impressed me a little bit when I saw it in the theaters. And this is a sequel to a movie, and that is going to be Jumanji 2, Welcome to the Jungle. Yeah, so I honestly thought this movie did okay in the theaters. I mean, and the way the plot did, I mean, it was okay, and it definitely referenced a thing from the first movie of Jumanji with the late Robin Williams, and as always, rest in peace, Robin Williams. But the character that he played, Alan Parrish, the name was mentioned in this sequel, which is great news in my opinion. I mean, we got to see the place he was living in during the events of the first movie when he was stuck in the game for 26 years. And I gotta say, the fact that they showed that actually in the game was pretty impressive. I mean, and however, the one thing that I was not so sure about when it came to the plot and the villain was the Van Pelt villain. I mean, obviously Van Pelt was the villain in the first movie, but the way they made Van Pelt in this movie was okay, I guess, but I still thought the movie was pretty entertaining, especially with the great castings of Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Hart, Jack Black, and famous Nebula actor Karen Gillan from Guardians of the Galaxy. And I gotta say, my funniest, Jack Black and Kevin Hart's character were the funniest ones in the movie. I mean, it was just insane. But I gotta say, this movie definitely delivered as a true sequel to the first Jumanji movie from 1995, I think. And if they are, if you saw in one of my previous videos of my most anticipated 2019 films, they are making a third Jumanji movie, and I'm interested to see how the 4 famous actors that were in this movie come back in this one. But for number 9, I'm going to have to go with Jumanji 2, Welcome to the Jungle. Number 8. So for number 8, this movie was definitely interesting to see. It was an origin movie, and that is The Greatest Showman. Yeah, so The Greatest Showman is basically based on a live performance that I used to watch here in Richmond all the time when I was young, called The Greatest Show on Earth. And unfortunately, they did stop playing the thing back in February of 2017, which is months before they released the actual movie based on it. And honestly, I was a little disappointed when they stopped doing the actual show, but then they released a movie based on it and getting everyone hyped. And I gotta say, but I still thought it was a good movie. And yeah, like I said, so I mean, Hugh Jackman did an amazing job in this movie as P.T. Barnum, and a lot of the actors in this movie were pretty amazing, like the famous Zendaya and Zac Efron and all those famous actors. And honestly, it was a pretty good origin story to show us how the show began in the first place, and I can't wait to see what they do in the near future for movies like that. But for number 8, I'm going to have to go with The Greatest Showman. Number 7. So for number 7, honestly, I didn't think this movie was even going to get made, but they did make it, and it was the last film in the series, and that's going to be Pitch Perfect 3. Now, I know what you're going to say, seems like it would be for girls, but I have no judgment on that. I honestly thought this movie was a good performance, and the thing that really surprised me about this movie was the fact that a lot of the ending of the movie mostly was like a little bit of violent type action-packed scenes with explosions and fighting and arguments that sounded violent. And like I said, this movie specifically out of the series only focused on one of the Bellas, and that was Fat Amy. And the fact that she had something to do within this whole series the whole time, and that's why she showed up in the first Pitch Perfect movie, I gotta say, that was shocking that this movie took place, that this movie was mostly talking about why Fat Amy was considered one of the Bellas and why she just showed up randomly in Pitch Perfect 1. And I gotta say, this has to be a solid ending movie to the series. And so for number 7, I'm gonna have to go with Pitch Perfect 3. Number 6. So for number 6, honestly, I didn't know if this was gonna make the top 5, but obviously it didn't. But I gotta say, this movie definitely intrigued me, and that is Pirates of the Caribbean 5: Dead Men Tell No Tales. Yeah, this is the 5th installment of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, and I mean, the fact that the 4th movie got released back in 2011, which was 6 years ago, and I mean, I gotta say, the fact that it took them 6 years to release a 5th movie to the franchise, I mean, I still thought it was a little bit worth it, and I heard that this could possibly be the second to last installment, meaning they might make another one. I've heard rumors that they might be. I don't know anything else otherwise. And I heard that Davy Jones, who died in the movie At World's End, could possibly be showing back up. However, he might not be played by the same guy, which is Bill Nighy. So hopefully they do something about that. But I gotta say, what really surprised me about this movie was the surprise cameo appearances of William Will Turner, who was the new captain of the Flying Dutchman at the end of At World's End, as well as Elizabeth Swann at the end of the movie. Like, I thought it was just gonna be Will Turner, but nope. Even Keira Knightley as Elizabeth Swann showed up, and she had her original brown hair again. And I gotta say, this was incredible. This movie. I mean, with the shocking twist of Karina Smith, one of the main characters in the movie, actually being the daughter of Hector Barbosa, the main antagonist throughout the series, to Jack Sparrow. I gotta say, I mean, and another thing that surprised me about this movie was, like I said, the death of Hector Barbosa again. I mean, he died in the Black Pearl, and he was brought back in Dead Man's Chest, and then he dies again in this movie. So honestly, I was surprised when he died, came back, then died again. Like, I wonder if he's possibly going to show up in the 6th movie again. I'm not 100% sure, but or at least maybe Karina Barbosa is going to take his spot. But this movie did an intriguing entertainment part on me, and I can't wait to see how they might do the 6th movie. But for number 6, I'm going to have to go with Pirates of the Caribbean 5. Number 5. So now we're getting into the top 5 movies that I thought were pretty good this year. And at number 5, I'm going to have to go with Despicable Me 3. That's right. Despicable Me 3 was the 3rd installment of the series. I don't know if it's the last one or not. I heard there was possibility development of a 4th movie, and I already heard there's even development of a sequel to Minions, which I know a lot of fans were not excited about the first Minions movie, but and I mean, if they didn't like the Minions prequel as much, why would they care about a 2nd movie? But Despicable Me 3, I thought, was really interesting in this film series. I mean, obviously we have the main villain, Balthazar Bratt, who apparently was a child star who played a villain in the 80s, and the whole shocking revolution / truth of Gru's mom lying to him about his dad dying and finding out he had a twin brother named Drew, and the only difference between him and his twin brother is that his twin brother has hair and he does not. And that was kind of the whole thing about this movie, and how Drew wanted to be a villain like Gru once was, and he left that life behind him, but by the end of the movie, he was back on the job as of the Anti-Villain League, and unfortunately, his twin brother took over the position of villain in the family because he tried to keep his tradition alive, and he even took his minions at the end of the movie, no doubt. But honestly, I was surprised how Steve Carell was able to voice both Gru and his twin brother Drew during all those lines in the movie. And I gotta say, this movie definitely deserves a thumbs up for me, and I'm interested to see how they might develop a 4th movie. But for number 5, I'm gonna have to go with Despicable Me 3. Number 4. So for number 4, I gotta say, even this was technically, I think, the last film in the series, I think, but honestly, I thought it was a pretty good way to end it, and that was War for the Planet of the Apes. Yeah, so this movie, I was surprised how well they did with this. I mean, the fact that this movie, along with the first 2 movies of it, were such good remakes compared to the other, I think, 5 films that were released way back in the late 20th century, and in like the 1990s, I think, or 1980s. But this remake series, including this movie, there we go, I thought it was pretty interesting to see how they did with this. I mean, a lot of characters there weren't as many returning characters from the first movie and or the sequel, and I gotta say, this movie did do pretty well though. I mean, it did technically end off with apes being the remaining species, but I mean, they did alright, I guess, for this movie. And however, my top 3 films I thought were way better, whatever, and we're about to get into number 3 right now. Number 3. So for my number 3 spot, I gotta say, this was such a great installment to the MCU, and that is SpiderMan Homecoming. That's right, this is the first solo film for the Marvel hero Spider-Man in the MCU, and I gotta say, they couldn't have picked a better actor in age and height to play this character than Tom Holland, who was 19 years old when he first played Spider-Man in Captain America: Civil War, and the fact that that this solo movie took place right after that battle, and the beginning of Spider-Man Homecoming actually took place right back to the events of the first Avengers movie in 2012. I gotta say, it definitely tied in with the MCU. Like I said, you have the battle in New York post event by at the beginning of the movie with Adrian Toomes, and then where he becomes the Vulture 4 years later, right around the time Spider-Man got back from battling the Avengers. And even though in the movie it says 8 years later, I think it was, or 6 years, I can't remember how long ago. I think it said 8 years later, which must have been a typo, but because based on the MCU timeline, the first Avengers and Avengers Infinity War take place 6 years apart from each other. So, meaning if Captain America: Civil War and Spider-Man Homecoming took place around the same time, and that was 2 years ago before Avengers Infinity War, I gotta say, I see why they had that as a typo, but I still thought it was a pretty good movie. It was a solid remake of Spider-Man, especially with him being in the MCU, and I am very excited to see his sequel, Spider-Man Far From Home, which I am still awaiting for the trailer to release so I can react to it, whatever. My best synopsis on when they might release the trailer, it would have to be before the end of February, because by that time it will be 4 months before the actual release of the movie, and no movie has ever released the first trailer for less than 4 months ahead of time, and they have to release it by the end of February. Otherwise, they're just gonna have to accept the fact that they have to push the release date back again, and I do not want that to happen. But I gotta say, Spider-Man Far From Home was a pretty good release, so I'm gonna have to go with Spider-Man Homecoming for number 3. And for my number 2 spot, honestly, it was hard to decide between my number 1 and 2, but for number 2, I would have to go with Thor Ragnarok. That's right, this was the 3rd movie of the Thor series, and I believe the 17th installment in the MCU, and this was a really good Thor movie. I mean, it was the first Thor movie that wasn't directed by the same director for both the first and the second movies, and this guy did a way better job than whoever directed Thor: The Dark World. I mean, I'm just putting it out there. I mean, even though the Reality Stone did technically get introduced in Thor: The Dark World, I still think Thor 3 did a pretty good job with this. I mean, it introduced us to Hela, who I honestly at first thought was considered to be Lady Death, who was mentioned in the comics, but it turns out that's not the same character, even though she keeps saying in the movie she's the goddess of death and ever. But honestly, I thought it was great that this movie was not a disappointment, and we even got to see where the Hulk has been since Age of Ultron all that time, which was insane. I mean, you see Age of Ultron, and then after all the movies that came out between then and Ragnarok, where Ant-Man, Captain America, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, SpiderMan Homecoming, like 5 movies or whatever that all took between at least 2 years span. Except for maybe Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but still. The fact that it took 2 years to possibly to where we finally see Hulk after the events of Age of Ultron. I mean, that was insane. But my number 1 spot for 2017 is even better. And finally, for my number 1 best movie of 2017, I mean, this was going to make it somewhere on the list pretty soon, and it is a great classic remake. It is a remake to a classic movie from the 90s, and that is Beauty and the Beast. That's right. The 2017 live-action version of Beauty and the Beast of the classic 1990s film was amazing. I mean, it was just like the original. I mean, the only difference was the LeFou character, who was Gaston's little henchman. I mean, in the first animated film, he was much shorter or whatever compared to what he was played by Josh Gad in this movie. But I still thought this movie was a great remake that made into live action, and I mean, the songs are just killer classics, and as we all know, of A Tale as Old as Time song, and Be Our Guest, all classic songs. And Beauty and the Beast was a great installment to 2017. So, that's basically my list for 2017 of the best movies that I thought were great that year. And I will possibly try to do ones for 2014 through 2016 as well, because that's how many. 2014 was the year my friend Matthew Davis Media started with his rankings of movies, and like I said, here's his channel profile picture. But as always, I will see all you dudes in the next video.